The Trump administration is now officially in a constitutional crisis with the legal system in the United States. On Friday night, the Trump administration signed the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 in an executive order. What is that? Basically, he uses it, which is an old wartime law, to actively deport immigrants who are declared aliens and enemies of the United States. What does that mean? He's basically accusing them of being terrorists without an actual removal process. For reference, the Alien Enemies Act has only been utilized a few times by different administrations when we are actively in war. The whole purpose of it is to deport spies that are from countries that we are actively at war with. The problem with Trump is that we are not actually actively at war with anybody. So Trump decides to sign the executive order basically enforcing the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 on Friday night in order to deport immigrants without giving them due process. You don't have to give them their constitutional rights via a day in court or a lawyer, legal representation, or the formal legal process of deporting someone under this order. This was strategic, especially the fact that he quietly did it on Friday night without announcing it. So then on Saturday night, a federal judge blocked that executive order, saying if you have any deportation planes that are mid-air or about to take off, then you need to turn them around because I am blocking this order under a temporary injunction for 14 days. But of course, President Trump did not listen. He flew the deportation planes out anyway. Whether they were mid-air or they hadn't taken off, they shouldn't have landed under the judge's federal order, under the injunction, but they landed anyway. But what did President Trump do anyway? He flew and landed 2 deportation planes anyway. Now the issue is whether he actually defied a federal order, because what they are stating and the DOJ is stating basically all over the internet is that these planes were mid-air and over international waters, therefore not subject to the jurisdiction of the federal judge who blocked the order. But, I mean, they're not revealing any information. They're not exactly stating, were the planes actually mid-air? Had they been taken off? What is the information of the planes, the exact migrants who were actually in the planes, and like whether they landed and at what time? They won't tell us. If you have nothing to hide, if you're sure that they were over international waters and that they weren't defying a federal order, why wouldn't you just comply with this? So then the ACLU got involved and they joined the plaintiffs and they filed a federal lawsuit with that district judge, and they asked the district judge to hold Trump accountable. And basically the district judge asked Trump to provide sworn written statements stating that the planes were over international waters and that they had already taken off before the order. Now here's the funny part. They refused to do so. The Justice Department is refusing to give sworn statements and exact identities of the immigrants in the plane, whether they were actually convicted criminals or not, whether they were terrorists, and whether the planes had actually even taken off before the order was done. So if you have nothing to hide, if Caroline Leavitt is confident in her words that they did not defy a federal order, why wouldn't you provide written proof of that? It gets worse. So then ICE releases a sworn statement of their own, where they state that they are not positive that all of the immigrants on the planes were active criminals, meaning they were not deportable. The acting ICE field officer, in his official sworn statement filed with the federal court, stated that not all immigrants have criminal records, but just because we don't know anything about them doesn't mean they're not dangerous. Actually, maybe it means they're even more dangerous because they have incomplete profiles. What? What does that even mean? Well, I know that in order to be removed from the United States, you need an actual removal order. You need to be carefully vetted from ICE and removal proceedings in general. So you need to be, I guess, doing it legally. You need to be vetted through the process. So here's the issue. This is the entire reason why that federal judge blocked the order. It's not because he's a Democrat. It's because he doesn't know that these people were actually subject to deportation or not. In his statement, he said, why not put them through proceedings? They need a formal removal order. We don't know that all of these immigrants in these planes were actually deportable. So he's asking them to give proof of that, and the Department of Justice is refusing to do so. Why? It's obvious they weren't deportable. Not all of them were criminals. Not all of them were terrorists, and not all of them were subject to deportation. Then today we found out that a famous Venezuelan soccer star was also on that plane and deported for having tattoos. And we have proof that he has absolutely no criminal history in the United States. Jose Reyes Barrio was a famous soccer player who was in Venezuela who came to the United States legally seeking asylum because he was being tortured by the Maduro regime in Venezuela. Asylum is a legal process. He was seeking asylum, which is legal status in the United States because he fears persecution in his home country. When you are in the United States physically, whether you have legal status or not, you are subject to due process under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. You have constitutional rights, and one of them is the ability to have your day in court. Not one immigrant on these planes we know had their actual day in court. This is bigger than some issue with some deportation plan or as to whether this person is deportable or not. This is not about one immigrant or a soccer player. This is not about Venezuelans. This is about Trump thinking that he can defy federal court orders and thinking that he is above the law. This is the first administration to actively ignore the law and think that they're above federal justices. It doesn't make any sense. We have three branches of government that all have to work together. This is the first president who thinks that he doesn't need to. So then the president had a temper tantrum, and he is now claiming on his stupid social media app, Truth Social, asking for the federal judge who blocked his executive order to be impeached. And then conservative Supreme Court Chief Justice Roberts actually gave a rare statement on this where he stated that this is not how you do things. You don't simply impeach judges who you disagree with on a judicial discernment. You go the legal way and you go the appellate process. Yes, the Trump administration has appealed this executive order, but still, if you're doing it the legal way and you claim that you are not above the courts, why would you be asking for the impeachment of the judge if you're doing it the legal way? You can't impeach every single judge that you disagree with. It is not about you. This is one of many executive actions by federal justices who are not allowing Trump to take over and become a dictator of the United States. It gives me some hope in this crazy administration that at least we have federal judges who do their job and put him in his place. The federal judge has given the Trump administration a deadline to provide those sworn statements. It's already an appellate review. I'm sure this will go all the way up to the Supreme Court. Follow me for more updates on the Trump administration when it comes to immigration.